Don't run out of money before I'm generating revenue was the whole idea behind that 20 grand.
One night in 2002, Grubhub founder Mike Evans was hungry and tired, and he just wanted to get food delivered. And he had an idea, and the very popular food delivery system was born.
I've always been a core believer that there isn't just one set path, and a big problem in the United States is we only have a linear path for traditional success. Did you always want to go to university? I know you racked up quite a lot of university debt.
I didn't want to just go to college because I wanted a college degree. I wanted to go to college because I wanted to maximize the options that I had to do my career later. And even at Grubhub, I talk about this in Hangry in the book. You know, after the IPO, a lot of people thought I was successful because I had an IPO, but I thought the business was successful for a different reason. I had my own definition of success. And what that was, it's so basic, it doesn't even sound like an innovation.
One of my favorite quotes of all time, you used it in your book: if more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would all be a merrier world.
How do we put together a program that really helps homeowners just not worry about being an A+ homeowner? And so we reframed that question of I want monthly revenue to in terms of what do customers need that's regular. It took us literally like a year and a half of testing and figuring these things out until we really cracked the code on what people wanted.
I've got a very special guest lined up for today, and you are not going to believe this individual has gone on to build a $2 billion company from scratch. We've got Mike Evans, the founder of Grubhub. He's gone on to build some other very impressive stuff, as publishing a best-selling book, Hangry, that's flying off the shelves, and has also gone on to found a very successful company called Fixer. We're going to dig into this episode to find out everything he's learned along the way of going to MIT at the beginning, coming up with the idea for Grubhub, why he quit his job after becoming a millionaire and staying in poor conditions, biking across the United States, living in a tent instead of living the high life. He shares everything he's learned along the way, and you're not going to want to miss the very end because there's some really insightful information about making a business successful and also the mindset that goes along with it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dig in.
Thanks for having me on board. You know, I've got obviously I just put this book out, Hangry, and I had a moment to sort of sit back and reflect on what the 12 years I spent at Grubhub, founding at my apartment and running it through the IPO was like. And now I'm 5 years into this new business called Fixer, which is a handy person, a homeowner care and maintenance company where we employ the handy people as full-time employees instead of like a contractor model. And a lot of what I'm spending my attention on is sort of thinking about really what customers want, like what customers want in the home, how they want their home managed, and sort of trying to take the lessons I learned from the first 10 years at Grubhub and then applying them to another business that it's also is going to be hopefully quite large.
So what are some of the things that, I guess, maybe the pitfalls or failures you had at Grubhub that you're trying to avoid now in Fixer?
Yeah, I think the thing that I talk about in the book and that I learned the first time, and then I'm shocked I've had to learn again because I literally wrote a book on it, is the only thing that matters in a consumer business is a repeat purchase. The only thing that matters is having a product that's so good that people come back to it again and again and again, because it is so expensive to get customers. It just takes so much effort and money and energy and everything just to attract people to whatever it is you're selling, your brand, your book, your company, whatever it is. Once you get them to try your product, it's so important that it's so good and that you invite them to come back and repeat use it. I forgot it. I got really distracted by the idea of getting new customers, and I forgot that repeat customers was where it was at. And so it took me a couple of years to relearn that lesson here again at Fixer.
Yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs have a similar journey where they realize it's so hard to get your first customers. Maybe they get first 100 or first thousands. And a lot of times they don't realize, hey, maybe we should just reach out to that buyer pool or set up some sort of recurring business model. And this is why every tech company and almost every piece of software we buy now is on a monthly recurring revenue business model. How are you guys trying to fix that problem at Fixer with getting recurring revenue, not having to go out, and once you have a customer, keeping them in the funnel and in the family?
Yeah, I think the first thing you do is you say, okay, from a business perspective, obviously it makes more sense if people come back every month or every week or every whatever to your business instead of just one and done. But you have to take that and sort of put it on the side and say, okay, well, what is it that customers actually need that that happens monthly. And it turns out, we started out with a handy person business where you had a broken pipe in your wall, you needed somebody to come fix it. You had to put in a new door, you had to make something level, you had to hang some art, whatever. And so you'd book our service online, we'd show up, we'd do a great job. But what we realized is that there was a deeper issue that homeowners were facing, which was, I don't know how to maintain my home more generally, and I don't want to think about it. I don't want to have to be on top of like, did I change the air filters this year, or was that last year? Things like that. And so what we did is we realized there was 60 or 70 core tasks that have to happen every year. Some of them happen every month even. Some of them happen every quarter. And how do we put together a program that really helps homeowners just not worry about being an A-plus homeowner? And so we reframed that question of I want monthly revenue to in terms of what do customers need that's regular. And it took us literally like a year and a half of testing and figuring these things out until we really cracked the code on what people wanted to have us come do every month. In addition to sort of the ad hoc, hey, can you install this thing for me? That also happened in addition. And so we rebuilt the company around this idea of a holistic home care maintenance program with an employee base instead of a contractor base. So the quality of the work is really good.
Flashing back and looking at the path that you went down, Mike, I know you went to college. Can you talk us a little bit about that? Like, did you always want to go to university? I know you racked up quite a lot of university debt.
Yeah, I grew up in what at the time was rural Georgia, but became suburban Atlanta. And I really wanted to experience, I wanted to go to college because I wanted to experience multiculturalism and in an international set of peers. That was really what I wanted to get out of college. And so I ended up going to MIT, and pretty quickly, doing software at MIT, I knew I wanted to do some sort of .com. This was 99, right? Like right at the .com crash is when I graduated. And so I came out of school at a time when like everybody was like, oh, that didn't work. The .com thing didn't work. And I was like, I don't know. I think I'm going to give it a try. I think I'm going to give this Grubhub thing a try. And I'm glad I did, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I think the idea of like, I didn't want to just go to college because I wanted a college degree. I wanted to go to college because I wanted to maximize the options that I had to do in my career later.
Switching back to there, like from MIT to graduating, what was that path like? I kind of want to go through chronologically and I think that'll be super beneficial.
Have you ever dreamed of soaking up knowledge from top business leaders and entrepreneurs? Well, I've got a perfect solution for you, and it's going to be a wealth of knowledge that can travel with you anywhere in the world. Introducing today's sponsor, and one of my favorite products for education is Audible.com, your personal doorway to thousands of audiobooks packed full of wisdom and adventure. Are you a knowledge seeker, always on the move? Carrying hundreds of books everywhere isn't practical at all, right? Or it can be hard to read while walking through an airport, at the gym, or anywhere else on the go. This is where Audible came to the rescue. The power to carry hundreds of books in your back pocket. With Audible, you're not just reading, you're living stories, learning new skills, and downloading decades of knowledge right from your pocket. Imagine carrying thousands of books that you can access at any time from the comfort of your phone. And here's the best part. You can get started today for absolutely free. Even better, you can listen to my #1 best-selling audiobook, Global Career, How to Work Anywhere and Travel Forever, at no cost at all by simply clicking the links below in the description. Audible has built a new medium that has redefined and enhanced the nature of spoken information, education, and entertainment. And if you're ready to get started, just click that link below and you can get started with your free trial of Audible.
I left MIT and I went and interviewed for corporate jobs, and my wife was decided to go to Northwestern Law, which is in Chicago. And so I interviewed for jobs around Chicago, and I ended up with two very different jobs. One was at a .com. That was one offer I got. And the other one was as an electronics engineer at a steel mill. And I really, really, really wanted to do the steel mill job. I was way more interested in like moving thousands of pounds of molten metal around, like efficient. Like it just seemed like a cool job, right? And I didn't know if I was going to do it for the rest of my life, but I just thought it would be a cool experience to do it. I had done internships at Ford and places where there were strong union shops, and I had always gotten along with the unions really well. And I liked the idea of like that interface. The engineer sort of sometimes plays the interface between managers and unions, but they just paid so little money compared to the .com jobs. I just couldn't convince myself to do it. And it's a trap. Like this idea that you get like a really good degree and you have a lot of debt, like it limits your options. You kind of have to take the higher paying job. And then if you I had friends who were in this situation that liked that job, but then because they were being paid really well, didn't like that job, but because they were being paid really well, felt like they couldn't go do what they really wanted to do. And so it's actually really important to think about these things, about like what you want to do early before your earning power starts amassing in a particular trade or domain of skill, because once that happens, it gets harder and harder to switch. And so I ended up getting the .com job, and as predicted, I didn't love it. I was like sitting in a cubicle. I was writing software. I was just a coder, and I just did air quotes for anyone listening to this on audio, because like you're not really allowed to look at marketing or business or sales if you're just a coder. And that I chafed. I just didn't like being limited and pigeonholed like that. And so what I did is I took that time to learn how, in my mind I thought of as a big corporation. It was only 300 people. It wasn't actually that big of a company, but in my mind it was this huge behemoth of the company. And I just wanted to like understand what they did well. They did a really good job of taking care of their employees from a benefits and like care perspective, but like the work was really boring. So it just wasn't that innovative or anything. And so I ended up wanting to start my own company. But I thought it was helpful to be in the corporate world for a couple of years with a learning mentality to see what was done well, instead of just starting out with this mentality that everything's wrong and I can do it all better. There are some things that corporations do really good. And so it was helpful to see that firsthand.
In the beginning of your book, Hangry, you included a quote by J.R.R. Tolkien: "If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world." Why did you end up including this as one of the first things people read when they're starting your book?
So the book Hangry, it's not about creating a company that IPOs. It's about the emotional journey of creating a startup. What is it like as a person to go through that? And one of the things that becomes really apparent as you become successful is that there are different parties involved that have different interests, and a lot of those, a big portion of them are people just want to get rich. They just want to they want to give you a certain amount of money. They want to take more money out, right? And it's a known fact, like it's a known quantity. That's why investors invest, and it's fine. And so the quote, if people valued food and cheer above hoarded gold, that was actually the counterpoint to the first quote. There were two quotes in the book. In the start of the book, the first one was, "Make no small plans, for they have no power to move men's hearts," which is by Daniel Burnham, who's a major architect of the city of Chicago. So taken together, those two quotes, the idea is that shoot for something big, but like enjoy it while you're going through it, right? It's not all just about the money. And this idea I'm glad that you picked up on it, because most people talk about the first quote. The two in combination, I'm trying to address this issue that's rampant in startups, which is an entrepreneur gets into doing a startup because they're willing to be miserable for a number of years, 5-10 years, creating their startup, so that then after that, they can be happy. And it doesn't work. If you can't find contentment now, then you can't find it later. You have to work on that the only time to ever get good at finding contentment is in the present. And so the idea behind those two quotes is that like, go and do something ambitious, but enjoy it while you're doing it, not after it's done. And so it's a bit subtle. I don't know that a lot of people picked up on that in the book, but that's sort of one of the messages of the book is do hard things, but enjoy the fact that while you're doing the hard things can be fun.
100%. I love the expression, the person who loves walking is going to walk further than anybody. And I think finding what that is, what that passion is for you, and aligning it with something in your business, that's something that you actually enjoy, is going to make you a lot more successful than somebody who just hates things for 4 or 5 years, isn't happy, to try to, at some point later down the line, get more money to make them happier. I don't think that works out well for most people. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. I love that quote. As far as the main mission of the book, you kind of kicked it off with that. Anything else that you want people to really take away from Hangry after reading it?
Yeah, the goal of the book was if I could convince 10 people about this idea that businesses are huge levers for social change, whether you want them to be or not. Just doing business activity, changes the communities in which it works. So be intentional about it. Be thoughtful about it. Think about where you're headed and how what you do impacts the community around you. Because if you don't think about that early, it can be very hard to change it late. And so I that is the main message of the book, is just be thoughtful and intentional about what you do, and think about your impacts holistically, not just in terms of the business world. That's the main point of the book.
Love it. It's a great read. I highly recommend people checking out Hangry. You can find it on Amazon, Audible, anywhere that you can buy books out there. It's a fantastic read.